Hey, crappie fishermen, May is one of the best times to catch crappie, so today we're going to focus on the most effective techniques of fishing with minnows. Okay, folks, we're going to cover all of the tips, tricks, and techniques you need to make your crappie fishing an absolute success this year. So as the water begins to warm up in early May, crappie will begin moving into the shallow waters to start the spawning process, which will make them more accessible and a lot easier to catch. So what we're going to do is cover why emerald shiner minnows are such a great bait to catch crappie this time of the year and especially all year round. So why are minnows so effective to catch crappie? Well, that's because they feed heavily on them, especially during this time of the year when they're about to spawn. And that's because the size of the minnow and the flash of the minnow is simply irresistible to crappie. That's what makes them such an ideal bait. Obviously, they're very easy to use. They're easy to get, whether you get them at your local bait shop or whether you go insane for them yourself. But I can promise you they're very highly effective to catch crappie, especially this time of the year. In terms of what gear and setup you're going to need to start fishing for crappie, that's pretty simple. For crappie fishing with minnows, all you need is a light or medium light action rod with a nice spinning reel is ideal. And all you really need is 4 to 6 pound line, and that's going to allow you to feel everything and it still be sensitive enough to feel the action of a bigger fish. So the first tip is to actually choose the right size minnow. Now, crappie typically prefer minnows that are a little bit smaller, usually in the 1 to 2 inch long size, and that's what you usually get from bait shops or if you go out and catch them on your own. But the bigger the minnow, the bigger the slab you're going to get. So if you do find minnows in the 3 to 4 inch size, hold on tight because the big daddy's coming for you. Okay, the next tip is really important, and that is how to best rig the minnow. There's actually a number of different ways to do it, but what we have always found the most success with is to hook it through the lips. And that is because it allows the minnow to swim more naturally, and it certainly keeps it alive longer once it's down in the water. So all you got to do is hook it through the lips by gently inserting the hook through the lower lip and come out through the upper lip. Again, this is going to keep the minnow alive a lot longer, and it's going to allow it to swim more naturally. Now, some great tips and hacks to keep your minnows alive and fresh and lasting throughout the entire day. All you want to do is pour some hydrogen peroxide into the minnow bucket water. And what that's going to do is add in oxygen, which is going to keep the minnows a lot more lively and keep them alive throughout the day. The other great tip you can do is put some ice cubes in sealed baggies into the bottom of the minnow bucket water. That's going to bring the overall temperature down, keep them more alive and fresh, and allow you to fish for a couple more hours. But just make sure, though, never to put the actual ice cubes or water or tap water or bottled water into the minnows because the chemicals and chlorine in the water and cubes will kill them off pretty quick. Now for me, the most fun part of crappie fishing is using a bobber. A beautiful little lightweight balsa stick bobber is absolutely perfect. It's going to allow you to keep your minnow swimming at the correct depth. And of course, it's going to signal every time you get any nibble or bite underneath the water. These stick bobbers are very easy to adjust the depth depending on where the crappie are actually holding at. And again, this time of the year when they're spawning and you're fishing in shallow water, that's usually maybe even in only 1 to 3 feet. Now, the next tip is to actually find the right spot to catch crappie this time of the year. Now, obviously, in early May, you want to look for them near any type of cover or structure in the shallows, like submerged brush piles, any types of fallen trees and timber, certainly weed bed edges, and around wood pilings and docks. These are all areas that crappie love because they provide them with adequate cover and keeps them cooler. And of course, they're the prime spawning grounds for them at this time of the year. Okay, next, this time of the year when you're crappie fishing, you got to be very patient and you have to be very observant. because the water temperature is still pretty cold, usually in the upper 40s, low 50s. Crappie can be pretty finicky at this time of the year. So the key is to watch your bobber at all times very closely for any subtle movements. At this time of the year, the bite is not going to be really strong, so you have to stay alert and watch for any movement. Okay, let's talk about the technique now at this time of the year. So whether you have the minnow in the water or if you have a jig that's tipped with a nice emerald shiner minnow, just make sure you use a slow and steady retrieve when you're reeling it in, because crappie at this time of the year are still known for a very light bite. So if you do feel some resistance, set the hook. And again, a slow and steady and easy retrieve is best this time of the year when the water temperature is still warming up. One more great tip that I didn't mention earlier is you've got to have a good aerator in your minnow bucket water that's pumping oxygen at all times. That's the only way the minnows are going to stay alive for a full day of fishing. And another great tip is to just keep an extra set of batteries. Usually they're D batteries or C batteries. Keep them in the boat at all times or keep them with you, because if the batteries go, you got to replace them and get the oxygen flowing. Now, another simple but pretty easy tip to catch more slabs and fill your cooler a lot quickly is to use multiple rods, if that's legal in your area. Obviously, this is going to increase your chances of finding where the crappie are. You can space out the rods and obviously, most importantly, fish them at different depths until you find where the school is biting. Okay, so when should you go out there crappie fishing? What's the best time of the day? At this time of the year in early May, the best time to crappie fish is still going to be early morning or late afternoon, just before dusk. And it's no different whether you're bass fishing or catfishing. These are always going to be the peak feeding times for crappie to be most aggressive. And that's especially true during the spawning season and while they're in the shallows this time of the year. Okay, we've covered now that you've got to have lively, fresh minnows, okay? And you're going to be casting and retrieving your jigs, tip with minnows a little bit slower, focusing on the shallows, the structure, and the cover. So all you want to do is cast your line out near the structure and cover and let the minnow settle a little bit for a second or two. Then you can slowly reel it in, making sure that you have occasional pauses. And what that's going to do is mimic a wounded or dying minnow. And many times the crappie is going to hit it right after the pause. Okay, folks, we hope that you enjoyed this video and you got a lot of tips and tricks. Obviously, crappie fishing is incredibly fun. It's very rewarding, and the crappie is one of the best freshwater panfish to eat. But what Joe and I do this time of the year is we catch and release, especially during the spawning season, obviously because we want to maintain a healthy fish population in that particular lake, and we give an opportunity for future generations to catch the fish down the line. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. Please like this video, hit the subscribe button before you leave, and don't forget to enable your bell notifications so you never miss another great video coming your way.